Okay, shalom, everybody. Shalom, shalom. Hope you all are doing well. Here we go. Okay, I hope you can hear me, see me, all of that stuff. First time I'm actually live streaming to the Vegan Rabbi page here on Facebook. I'm excited about that. And yeah, we have a class tonight, wherever you are in the world. Maybe it's already tomorrow. We're in the middle of the night. But Akiva here, Rabbi Akiva here. Hope you're doing really, really well, wherever you are in the world. If you are tuning in, either live or watching it recorded, say hi in the comments. Tell us where you're tuning in from. It's always nice to see. And we have a class today that I am streaming from Zoom to this Facebook page because I want to use a slideshow to share some sources. And it's called Eating Before God. We're in this month of Elul right now. We're getting ready and getting closer to Rosh Hashanah. And yeah, there's lots to talk about. All right. And there's really this idea that we're always standing before God. We're always doing everything before God. We're always before God, always. But there's this feeling and there's this idea that in this month of Elul, that feeling is stronger, more visceral, more able to be felt. And there's this idea that Hamelech Basadeh, that God is in the field, so to speak. The field being a metaphor for our lives, or for our everyday lives. Right? There was a story a couple hundred years ago, even a few hundred years ago, at the Baal Shem Tov, that a very, very poor, hardworking, all-day working Jew went to the Baal Shem Tov and said, Rebbe, I get up really early in the morning and I go out to my field and I work all day. And I get home super late at night, and just to put some food on my very, very large family. I don't have time to pray. I don't have time to study. I don't have time to learn. I don't have time to go into the Beit Midrash, the house of study, or the Beit Tefillah, the house of prayer. How am I supposed to connect to God? You talk about connecting to God all the time. How can I connect to God when I'm constantly working just to, eke out a living for my family? And the whole time, the Baal Shem Tov was sitting there, listening with love and with patience. And when the man is done speaking to the Baal Shem Tov, so the Baal Shem Tov says just two words. He says two words to him, and those two words are Hamelech Basadeh. The king is in the field. Hamelech Basadeh. The king is in the field. Oh, so you're in the field? So God's in the field as well. Wherever you are, there is God. Meaning wherever you are, you can access God. You can connect to God. You can think about God. You can meditate on God. You can feel God. God is everywhere. It's an essential idea of Judaism. And not only that God is one, not only that there's only one God in the world and the universe in reality, but that God is everywhere. There's a oneness everywhere, right? And we feel that more. We can feel that more in this Chodesh, in this month of Elul, that leads us up to Rosh Hashanah. That's what I want to talk about. I called it Eating Before God because on the Vegan Rabbi page, we talk a lot about food in our eating choices and the impact of those choices on ourselves, animals, the environment, the world. So I wanted to call it Eating Before God, and this idea of aligning our eating with Jewish values. So let's go on a little journey of learning together. All right, I'm going to share my screen here. And let's see, hold on 1 second. Let's get the right tab open. Here we go. All right. Here we go. All right, my friends. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to put them in the comments. I might not see them live, but I'll see them afterwards. I can always respond afterwards. Okay. So really excited about this. Really excited about streaming to the Vegan Rabbi Facebook page. And here we go. Okay. I believe everyone can see this. This is the slideshow that I put together for this class. A few different sources. Now, know this topic is much bigger than the time allotted for this class, but at least we'll get some of the learning in. And again, if anyone has any questions, they can ask afterwards, and we can continue the discussion offline, so to speak, or off live, I should say. Hold on 1 second. I'm just going to share this to one other place, and then we will be ready to begin. And this technology is so awesome. I mean, I've been using it for a long time, but it's the first time I'm streaming live to this page, which I'm excited about. Okay, so here we go. Let's begin, my friends. And we're beginning with a Mishnah, right? A Mishnah in Rosh Hashanah. Okay, now a Mishnah is part of the Oral Torah. It was actually the very, very first part of the Oral Torah that was written down by Rabbi Yehuda Nasi in the year 200. He took many, many years to compile it, to edit it, to put it together. It was the very, very first time that anything was written down in organized form outside of the Tanakh, outside of the Hebrew Bible, right? So it's a really, really big deal. It's an essential piece of learning and text for the Jewish tradition. So here in the tractate, right, in the section of the Mishnah is huge, right? There's over like about 5,000 different individual Mishnahs. This is just one of them. Right, and in this one called Rosh Hashanah, which deals obviously with Rosh Hashanah, coming up in just 2 weeks from now, literally 2 weeks from now, at least here in Israel, it will be Rosh Hashanah. Very exciting and very daunting at the same time. So this is a very interesting Mishnah, because this Mishnah says the following, that they are 4 New Years, right? It's kind of a skeletal translation from the Hebrew. There are 4 New Years in the Jewish tradition, right? There's not just one New Year's. Rosh Hashanah is not the only one. It's one of 4, right? So let's learn about that. On the 1st of Nisan is the New Year for the kings and the festivals, and that has to do with counting the years of a king's reign back in the day when there were kings, with the passing of Queen Elizabeth. Right, people's consciousness and awareness is going back into this idea that, wow, once upon a time, there were a lot of kings and queens ruling the world. And for the festivals, right, because the festivals in the Torah are dated by the month that they are in. And Nisan is the first month of the calendar in terms of that. All right, so, we say Pesach is in the first month, which is Nisan. We say Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur and Sukkot are in the 7th month, which is the next month. Elul that we're in right now is the 6th month. So the counting of the festivals goes by Nisan. On the 1st of Elul is the New Year for the animal ties. Huge topic. Maybe some of you have turned into it. More and more people are talking about that over the past few years, including this year. Trying to bring it back the way that Tu B'Shvat was brought back in the past few decades, right? And without going into too much detail, the animal ties basically, any animal, how do I say this? A group of animals that are born in one single year, 1 out of every 10 has to be given, all right, to the Beit HaMikdash, okay? And the 1st of Elul, which is the month that we're in now, so just going back 2 weeks ago, we don't do this anymore. This is an ancient custom that no longer has, connection to our lives today. But basically, this idea that they would count literally 1 by 1, every 10 they would kind of count the 10th, and that 10th was brought to the Beit HaMikdash, okay, to be brought as a sacrifice. And those animals born in 1 year cannot be counted along with animals born in another year. So this was like the demarcation point. Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Yishimon said on the 1st of Tishrei. Okay, different opinion, machloket. A disagreement. On the 1st of Tishrei is the New Year for the years, Rosh Hashanah, for sabbatical years and jubilee years, for planting and for vegetables, right? All different kinds of uses for Rosh Hashanah. All right. On the 1st of Shvat is the New Year for the tree, Tu B'Shvat, right? Although I guess Tu B'Shvat is, in the next opinion, in accordance with the statement of Beit Shammai. Beit Shammai had the opinion that the New Year for the trees was on the 1st of Shvat. Beit Hillel said on the 15th, and that's how we hold, right? We almost always go with the opinion of Hillel. And that's Tu B'Shvat, right? The 15th is Tu. Tet Vav is how you say 15 using the Hebrew letters, and that's where its name comes from, Tu B'Shvat, as you know today. Again, we're not going to get into all the details of the other things brought up in this Mishnah, but I just wanted to show you where we learn about Rosh Hashanah as the first day of a year, of being one of the New Years in the Jewish tradition, and just to show you really, really briefly, right, the 3 other New Year's days that do exist in the Jewish tradition. All right. Now let's focus on Rosh Hashanah, which is again just 2 weeks away. Right. The very next Mishnah tells us the following: that at 4 times of the year the world is judged. Right. The world is judged 4 different times of the year, not going according to those 4 New Year's days that we just learned about, right? Except for Rosh Hashanah, which we'll see in a second, but other times as well. Right. The Mishnah goes on to say on Passover concerning grain. Right. There is a judgment. There is a din, as we call it. There is a determination in the world regarding grain on Pesach, right? How much grain, what kind of abundance, what kind of crop there will be for the whole year starting on Pesach, right? On Shavuot, that judgment is concerning the fruits of a tree, right? Concerning the fruits of the tree. Now, just going back to Passover just for a second again, without going too off the path, so to speak. But in Passover, it makes sense because we're eating the matzah, right? Such a central part of Pesach, of Passover, is the matzah made of grain, obviously, right? Also, the Omer offering is brought, which is a barley offering on the second day of Passover, right? So it's really connected to the Chag, to the holiday itself. On Shavuot, we bring the Bikurim. We're actually learning about it in this week's Torah portion, Ki Tavo, right? We bring the first fruits of the tree, a beautiful mitzvah, an amazing mitzvah. Hopefully, you know what, we'll do another class, hopefully, God willing, one time just on that. Incredible thing to learn about, right? So because there's fruits having to do with Shavuot, so there's this idea that the fruits get judged, so to speak, the abundance, the amount, the quality, the taste, all that kind of stuff. On Rosh Hashanah, of course, what we're talking about here, all creatures pass before God like sheep, b'nei maron. As it is stated, he who fashions their hearts alike, who considers all their deeds. Right, we'll get back to that in a second, just to finish off. And on Sukkot, they are judged concerning water. Right, water is a big part of Sukkot. There's this water libation, which only happens on Sukkot. Really, really interesting. Right, Simchat Beit HaShoeva. Every night of Sukkot, there's this big celebration having to do with the drawing of the water and the spilling of the water on the mizbech, on the altar in the temple in Jerusalem. Let's go back to Rosh Hashanah. Look what it says. The Mishnah says, what happens on Rosh Hashanah? The people are judged. Right? It doesn't even use the word judging. It says all creatures pass before God like sheep. And I think it's so beautiful for a couple of different reasons. First of all, it doesn't say all Jews. It says all people, right? All creatures. Right? Kol ba'ei olam is really what it says. Right? All those who come into the world. And it's this really interesting, unique, universal aspect of Rosh Hashanah. Like we think about Rosh Hashanah, just like we think about all the Jewish holidays, but especially Rosh Hashanah as like this very Jewish holiday for the Jewish people, right? It's the Jewish New Year. Yet when we look in the teaching, when we look in this Mishnah, it says all the people on Rosh Hashanah, all the people alive, right? Jewish, any other faith, any other, ethnic group, any other nationality, everybody, all humans come before God in Rosh Hashanah. Right. And so there's this universal aspect of Rosh Hashanah, which I think is really, really beautiful. But what's this idea of us coming before God? It's this idea on a simple level that we're coming before God and in Rosh Hashanah, we're being judged, right? Yom Adin, it's called, the day of judgment, right? God sees us one at a time and judges us. Now, that's the standard mainstream way of looking at Rosh Hashanah. But when you look into the deeper Hasidic and other esoteric texts of the Jewish tradition, we see it's not about God judging us in this typical kind of, we're in a courtroom and the judge is saying, oh my God, look at all the bad stuff you did this past year. No, it's not like that. Although unfortunately, people still have that kind of feeling, that understanding of Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is this idea when we come before God, we have this opportunity, we have this zchut, as we say, this merit, this unbelievable moment that we, on our own, as an individual, get to come before God, right? This like flash of a moment, right? All God needs, right, is a flash of a moment to be with us, to see us in our entirety, more than we can ever know ourselves. And in that moment, it's not so much that God is judging us, it's more like we're showing up. We're saying, God, Hineni, here I am. This is me. This is who I am so far. In this process of life, in this journey of becoming me, this is where I'm at right now, at this moment in time. And this Rosh Hashanah, right? And God's giving us this chance to really be there and be ourselves and be proud of ourselves. And yeah, with all of our faults, with all my mess ups, yeah, you know what? I messed up a million times this past year. But here I am, I'm standing, I'm still going. I want to be better. I want to be the best I can. I'm still going in the process. I know it's still a journey. It's still unfolding. Watch for what's to come. And it's this incredible, like, intimate moment with God, right? And of course, in that moment, we're also being honest with ourselves. We're saying, God, look at all the good I've done this past year. Look at all that I've become. Look at all that I've learned. Look at all that I've accomplished. And yet at the same time, there's so much more I want to do. There's so much more I want to accomplish. There's so much more I want to be and become. And that's a real essential part of Rosh Hashanah and an essential part of what we're talking about here. Because we get to the shofar, right? We're not yet at Rosh Hashanah. We're 2 weeks away from that moment when we're standing before God, just me and God, just in this, again, powerful, intimate, personal, very, very unique moment. But leading up to Rosh Hashanah, we have a whole month of Elul. We have the whole year, right? But really, we focus on Elul. We take this month of Elul and we're really, really getting ready. I don't know what it's like where you live, but in Israel, it's tangible. In Israel, you can feel Elul in the air. People getting ready, people getting together. They're learning more, they're talking more about it, they're feeling more, especially in a place like Jerusalem. You can feel it on the street. You hear the shofars being blown all the time. Why? Because, that's why this picture here, it's a minhag, it's a custom, every single day of Elul to blow the shofar, except for Shabbat, and except for the day right before Rosh Hashanah. Every other day, there's a minhag, there's a custom to blow the shofar. Why? What is it about the shofar? What is it about the sound of the shofar? Let's go into that a little bit before we really get into this idea of eating before God. Right? Let's build more context for that. So it says in a halacha sefer, in a book of Jewish law called the Chaye Adam, the life of a person. It says the following: each person is obligated to prepare themselves with tshuva. We'll talk more about what tshuva is, but for the time being, we'll just use a simple and first layer definition and understanding of tshuva, which is repentance, but it goes much deeper than that, right? Each person is obligated to prepare themselves with tshuva and prayer for 30 days prior to the day they enter into judgment before God on Rosh Hashanah. And they should give their entire heart only to the service of God. And they alluded to this with the verse, Ani l'dodi v'dodi li, which we'll talk about soon. I am my beloved's and my beloved is mine, which is an acronym for Elul. Right? In Hebrew, that verse, the acronym, the first letter of each word spells out Elul. We'll go deeper into that in a few minutes. Therefore, one should increase one's tshuva, prayer and charity throughout the month. Okay, so we talked about three things being very important and being very powerful in the month of Elul: tshuva, prayer, and charity. Tshuva, tefillah, and tzedakah. We say this in the Rosh Hashanah prayers. We say this in the Yom Kippur prayers, right? That the power of tshuva and tefillah, prayer, and tzedakah, charity, have the ability to change Gzar Hadin, have the power and the ability to change a heavenly decree. Let's just understand tshuva a little bit on a deeper level, right? Because often it's translated as repentance, and often it's talked about as repentance. And of course, there's a level of teshuvah where that is correct. I'm repenting. I messed up. I'm confessing. I'm owning it. I'm admitting it, and I'm saying, you know what? I want to do better. I messed up totally, and I don't want to repeat that, and I really want to do better. And that's repentance, right? It's to really own up to the things that we've done wrong, off, not as good as we could do. But there's a much deeper idea happening here. Okay? And you know what? Let's save that. Let's save the deeper idea just for a few moments. Let's go through a few more sources, and then we'll get to the deeper idea. Okay? Keep you guys in suspense a little bit. Again, if you're tuning in live or even recorded, say hi in the comments. Tell us where you're tuning in from. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to ask. I'll probably just see it after the class, but still, always nice to see who's tuning in and from where. Okay, so you can say hi in the comments. Let's go to another source. This is from the Orach Chaim, another book of Jewish law from the Shulchan Aruch, and the Torah, who was a very, very famous commentator on the Shulchan Aruch, which was compiled 500 years ago. And he says, the sages enacted the blowing of the shofar on Rosh Chodesh Elul every year, right? The first minhag, the first custom, was that the shofar be blown on the first day of Elul. And the entire month, that came a little bit later, right? Why? To warn Israel to repent, right? As it says in the book of Amos, okay? If a shofar is blown in the city, will the people not quake? There's something about the sound, the quality of the sound of the shofar that wakes people up. Zman lihitorer. Right, it's a time to wake up, right? To wake up out of our slumber that sometimes we fall into throughout the year. So there's something specifically about the quality, the sound of the shofar that is the ability to wake people up out of their spiritual slumber, right? So that's why we have this minhag, this custom to blow the shofar all month long, because that sound, right? I don't know if you ever experienced it. Thank God I can say I've experienced it many, many times when I close my eyes. Either I'm blowing the shofar or somebody else is blowing the shofar. And I hear it, and it really feels like it's going very, very deep into my soul. And it's one of the things I love about the shofar and this whole time of the year, Elul and Rosh Hashanah specifically, where the mitzvah, the main mitzvah, on some level, the only mitzvah of Rosh Hashanah is to blow the shofar, is to hear the shofar, right? And I love it that our tradition, the Jewish tradition, understands values and sees that there is power in sound, that sound has the ability to change us. Right? Sound has the ability to wake us up spiritually, to move us and to affect us spiritually. Really powerful thing. And we see this through the shofar. Right? So again, we're blowing the shofar all month long throughout Elul. Right? And it's really about waking us up. right? Realigning us, right? Realigning us, right? What's another word for realigning? Recalibrating us onto the path that we should be on, into the people that we should be and could be, and really deep down want to be. Okay, let's go through another couple of sources from Maimonides, from the Rambam, right, in his Mishnah Torah. He says, "Get up, you who sleep from your sleep, and you who have dozed off, wake up from your slumber." Of course, he's talking about the shofar and Elul. "Search your deeds, return and repentance, and remember your Creator. Those who have forgotten the truth amid the foolishness of worldly pursuits, which we all fall into, and who waste your years in meaningless things that cannot truly profit nor save you, care for your souls, improve your ways and your actions. Let every one of you abandon their wicked way or any intention which is not good." Now, it doesn't have to just be wicked ways. It could just be ways that are just like a waste of time or not what I should be doing or not helping me or the world. Right? And this time is really about waking up to that fact. But yes, all of us, each and every single one of us, there's amount of time every day and every week and every month that we dedicate to doing great things, to become better people and help the world become a better place and just do good in the world. And yes, there's things that we do that are just a big waste of time, right? Bringing us, God forbid, in the other direction, or at least keeping us in the same place and not moving forward. And the Rambam's words are so powerful. I imagine hearing these words every single day of Elul. Wake up, get up, you who sleep from your sleep, and you who have dozed off, wake up from your slumber. It's like an alarm clock for the soul this whole month. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, who just recently passed away, my former chief rabbi of England, says the shofar is the satellite navigation system of the soul, reminding us of our ultimate destination, telling us how far we've yet to go. Like he usually would do, so simple yet so profound. And in one sentence, he just sums up the shofar, calling it a satellite navigation system for the soul. It's a reminder of where we should be going, where we should be heading, and how far we have left to go. Beautiful, right? And let's go to this verse. We're still going to get to what tshuva is about on a deeper level. Don't worry. And we mentioned this verse in a previous source, Ani lidodi v'dodi li, from Shir Shirim, from the Song of Songs, from the Tanakh, from the Hebrew Bible. And this is the verse that really sums up Elul. Right? Because if you look in the Hebrew, right, the first letter of each of those four words spells out Elul, like this month that we're in right now, which translates as "I'm to my beloved as my beloved is to me." Right? "I'm to my beloved as my beloved is to me." Ani ledodi v'dodi li. Maybe some of you guys heard the song that I wrote many years ago, or I received many years ago for this song, for this verse. Ani lidodi v'dodi li. Such a beautiful verse. It really, again, sums up Elul and what's going on here. And what I love about this verse is that it's about relationships, right? I am to my beloved as my beloved is to me. I'm having a relationship here, right? And often this is understood either in one of two ways: either me and God, my relationship with God, or my relationship with my life partner, right? In my case, my wife. I am to my beloved as my beloved is to me. It's like a love relationship. It's like a love song. It's like a love verse. I am to my beloved. Ani lidodi as my beloved is to me. V'dodi li. I'm in relationship. And what I love about this is that it reminds us that so much of our lives, right, are about relationships. Okay? So much of our lives are about relationship. And let's go. Okay, yeah. Well, I realized sorry. I didn't put in that teaching. I thought I totally had. Maybe it's coming later. I apologize, but I'll just talk it out right now. Let's go back into that idea of tshuva. Okay. You know what? Let me just look really quickly. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. I should have put it before, but we can talk about it before and after. Rav Kook, who was the first chief rabbi of pre-state Israel, lived from 1865 to 1935. If you follow Vegan Rabbi, you know I quote him very often because he has so much to say about animal welfare and vegetarianism and veganism, plant-based diet, and going back to the original plant-based diet that was given in the Garden of Eden. He has a lot to say about tshuva. And this is one of the many things he says about tshuva. Right? He says, when we forget the essence of our own soul, everything becomes confused and in doubt. The primary tshuva, that which immediately lights the darkness, is when a person returns to himself or herself, to the root of his or her soul. Right? So according to Rav Kook, and again, he says this so many times in so many different ways, what is tshuva really about? It's so much deeper than repenting. It's so much deeper than saying, "Oh, I messed up. I'm sorry, I'll try not to do it again." It's so much deeper than that. It's about returning to our souls. It's about returning to who we really are, who we deeply are, who we are primarily and essentially, right? Teshuvah, the word in Hebrew is based on the Hebrew word for return. And really, on the deepest spiritual level, it's about us returning to who we are, right? Who we are meant to be, the original vision for who we're meant to be and can be in this world. Okay, so holding that idea of teshuvah, right? As Rav Kook explains, let's go back here and let's talk about all these relationships, right? Because during this month of Elul, leading up to Rosh Hashanah, and on Rosh Hashanah itself, and even after Rosh Hashanah, leading up to and including Yom Kippur, what's the fixing we're trying to do here? What's all this spiritual personal work we're supposed to be doing? It could be framed in terms of all of the relationships that we have in our lives, right? My relationship with myself, I should love myself, I should encourage myself, not fall into despair, right? Or self, lots of things, right? I should love myself and see my beauty and see my strengths and recognizing definitely my weaknesses and my faults and my mistakes 100%, but don't beat myself up over it. Right? Rabbi Nachman of Breslov says that we have two Yitzhars, two evil inclinations. The first one chips us up and gets us to do something negative. We give into our temptations or lusts, whatever. The second evil inclination keeps us down after we fall and said, oh, who are you? Look what you just did. You can never get up again. Don't even try. What, all of a sudden you're like this righteous, good person? Look what you just did, a minute ago, 10 minutes ago, yesterday. No. We got to get up and brush ourselves off and move on, right? And we have that ability. Sometimes we don't allow ourselves to have that ability, but we absolutely do. So really, when we're talking about a relationship with ourselves, is this love and this encouragement and this belief in ourselves, right? Belief in our own strength and power and ability to do so much good in this world and who we can become in this world, right? That's relationship, 1.0 with ourselves. Relationship 2.0 is us and our family members, our friends, the people around us, right? In our community, other human beings. How are we acting towards them? How are we speaking about them? How are we even thinking about them? What are we doing for them? What are we not doing for them? Right? That whole sphere of me and other human beings. Right? And looking at that relationship in the month of Elul and seeing how can I better it? What good am I doing and what can I be doing even better? Going beyond that is our relationship with animals, right? What am I doing in my life that is impacting other non-human life on this planet, right? In good ways and in not so good ways. How are my lifestyle choices negatively impacting other animals? What, God forbid, pain and suffering am I causing to God's creatures in this world, right? Through my choices, my decisions that I make every single day, and my actions that I carry out. Thinking about that, becoming aware of that during the month of Elul, and trying to fix that, right? And of course, then there's my relationship with God, right? My relationship with God, where is that at? How is my relationship with God? My spiritual connection with God through prayer, through learning, through meditation, through singing, through whatever it might be. And all these levels of relationships, of course, we can think about these all the time, all year round. But Elul is this concentrated time where there's like this group focus, this community, national focus on these relationships, and trying our best to better them, to improve them, to bring them to the greatest level and quality that they could be. Okay. Now let's move on from here and let's focus specifically on our eating, right? Because in our eating, hold on, one other relationship. We talked about a relationship with ourselves, with other human beings, with other creatures in this world, with God. There's one more level, that's the whole world. That's the natural world, that's the environment, that's the ecosystems, all the ecosystems in the world, right? What am I doing? How am I acting? What decisions and choices am I making that are impacting the waterways, the air, the soil, the mountains, the valleys, the nature of this world? Okay. Now, with all that in mind, let's go to our eating. Because it's through eating that we impact the world probably in the greatest way. in our day and age today, in our generation today, in our industrialized and globalized society that we live in. Right? And through our eating choices, through our lifestyle choices, specifically connected to eating, we are impacting the world in ways that we humans have never done before and weren't even possible before. Right? So when we talk about wanting to improve our relationships and perfect our relationships and better them, I don't think there's a better place to look than our eating to accomplish that goal and to really fulfill that mission. Right? And of course, Judaism has so much to talk about when it comes to food. So let's go through a few different levels when it comes to food and Judaism. Of course, there's kashrut, right? Today, there's 1,000,001 kosher organizations out there, and symbols in America and in Israel. There's you can get dizzy just by looking at all these different kosher symbols that are out there. But what at its root, at its source, because all of this that we see on the screen, this is new. This is new stuff. This didn't exist for most of Jewish history. Right. The only reason we need these kosher agencies are because of all the food that comes through and out of factories and restaurants that we have, things that we never had even in the recent past. Right. But let's look at kashrut at its core. What is it about? It's about bringing awareness into our eating. It's about thinking about what we eat, not just eating anything and everything, but having guidelines and having parameters and having limitations. I know I can't eat everything. And certain things that I can eat, I still need to go even deeper, like, checking for bugs. I'm not allowed to eat bugs according to the Torah. So when I eat, leafy greens, I just made a big salad, as part of dinner for my family tonight. And when it came to the lettuce, I had to check every single piece of lettuce. I had to wash it, check it. Right? It brings me into a real relationship with my food, checking greens. Right? Of course, there's all the laws of kashrut having to do with meat and with dairy and with eggs. And if you ask me, and I'm sure many of you would agree, that maybe the root of why we have all those laws is to steer us away from eating those foods, steer us away from eating animals. Wow, what a long, complicated process. Maybe God doesn't really want to see these things. Topic for another time. We've talked about it here and there on the Vegan Rabbi page. But just the idea of kashrut in a general way and maybe in a deeper way, that it's really ideally about bringing consciousness and awareness into our food. I know it doesn't always feel that way. It's not always practiced that way, but really on the deepest level, that's what kashrut is about, right? It is to bring intention into our eating. So that we're not just, sitting down for a meal and eating whatever we want and really just losing all, ability and all opportunity to have a meaningful moment and a conscious and an aware moment with our food. So I just want to say that's obviously kashrut is a huge topic. I'm just going to say that about that, and we're going to move on. Okay. Hold on one second. Okay. Now here's a big plate of spaghetti. Nothing against spaghetti. I like spaghetti. Right. In fact, tonight I made my family spaghetti and a big salad. Right. Sometimes when I don't have as much time to cook, so that's what we'll do once every other week or so. Nothing wrong with spaghetti, right? But it's the amount. I chose this picture because it's a huge plate of spaghetti, right? And again, this is a topic in and of itself, but when it comes to Judaism and eating before God, right? How are we eating? How much are we eating? Are we taking care of our health and wellness while we eat, through our eating? And Judaism talks a ton. Here's not the place to go into all the details, but I have tons of sources I can share. And I've shared in another class I gave a couple of months ago about Jewish spiritual eating. Not to eat too much. Judaism talks a ton about it. Jewish law talks a ton about the obligation to take care of our bodies. Right? Our bodies are a gift from God. And we have an obligation, just like we have an obligation to take care of animals and the environment, we have an obligation to take care of our bodies, to take care of ourselves, our physical selves. And so one of the main things that you see repeated over and over again in these Jewish teachings is don't eat too much, eat in the right amount. Even if you eat healthy, but you eat too much, you've negated the healthiness of the food you just ate, One of the best things we could do for ourselves is to eat in measure, not to eat too much. That messes with our digestive system, which messes with our general health, which then, as the Rambam, Maimonides talks about, messes with our ability to be who we are in the world. God forbid, if someone's sick, they can't fully be who they are in the world. They can't fully fulfill their mission, bring their light into the world, do what they came here to do. Right? It really all comes down to how much you eat, right? Because that has so much to do with our health. Again, so much more can be said about that. I'm just going to leave it at that. But that's another, when we're talking about eating before God, am I just like stuffing my face and eating till, it's all gone and then some? Or am I eating in measure? Knowing that, this tastes really good. And I'm going to recognize I have a desire, I have a ta'ava, I have a lust to eat more, but I'm going to stop here because I know that's not good for me. And that's not why I came into this world. I didn't come into this world to eat, 3 plates of pasta. I came into this world to do something, and the food that I eat is a fuel that enables me, allows me, helps me to do that spiritual work that I came in the world to do. Healthy eating, healthy food choices. Okay. Well, then I just want to see the next. Okay. Yeah. Eating healthy. So the last slide was about not eating too much. This slide is about eating healthy. Right? What am I choosing to put into my body? What's the fuel I'm putting into my body? Right? What kind of food am I eating? Again, a topic in and of itself. But just to touch on how can we talk about eating before God and aligning our eating with Jewish values without talking about healthy eating. Again, in Jewish law, you see it. Right? Most of these laws and most of these passages and most of these books were written way before the modern era, when we had an overabundance of processed food and fast food and food that's just simply not good for us. I mean, it'd be an interesting experiment to go through your typical supermarket and just really kind of gauge how much of this food would be healthy and how much of this food is overly processed, too much salt, sugar, oils, right, and really not healthy for us. All right. So really just, making wise, healthy choices when it comes to our food, eating before God, eating with spiritual awareness, eating with spiritual consciousness, eating, because I want to give my body the right food and fuel in order to do what I came into this world to do. Right. So going back to the kashrut, Judaism's, food path, so to speak. Judaism's, path of intentional and conscious and aware and even spiritual eating. Right. And then there's a not overeating, right? Not messing up our digestive systems, because that has such a huge impact on our bodies. And then like the choices that we do make, the food that we do eat, making sure it's healthy. Now, of course, every now and then we have something with a bit too much salt and a bit too much sugar and all that, of course, right? But everything in balance, everything in measure. The bulk of our food should be healthy, living, alive food that will give us the most amount of strength and koach and energy to really become ourselves and be ourselves at the highest level, right? Again, a class in and of itself, but just wanted to touch on that a little bit. And of course, animal welfare, right? Of course, the impact of our food choices, of our eating on other creatures brought into this world by God, right? I mean, again, of course, this is a class in and of itself. It's a course in and of itself. And we talk about it all the time here in Vegan Rabbi. But to know that my food choices, what I'm eating, what I'm putting on my plate, what I'm buying in the store, what I'm putting in my fridge, what I'm cooking up in my kitchen, what I'm serving to my family, might be negatively impacting, might be causing pain and suffering to other animals unnecessarily, because I don't need to eat them to be alive, to be healthy, to be strong, to eat nutritious food, to eat delicious food. I don't need to eat animals. Yet, God forbid, maybe I'm making food choices that are negatively impacting other creations of God. That's a major thing to think about all the time, especially during this month of Elul. Again, just to reframe it, to zoom out just for a moment, what are we talking about here? We're talking about realigning our food choices, our eating with Jewish values. We are talking about the different relationships that we have in our lives and focusing on those relationships during the month of Elul even more so than we do during the year, and realizing how our eating, our food choices impacts every single one of those relationships. My relationship with myself, right? With how healthy that food is. How is that impacting my health? Am I eating too much? God forbid, right? My relationship with other people. We didn't even talk about that. Yeah. But my food choices and how they affect workers in different factories and on farms, in the country where I live in or around the world even. The idea that what I choose to eat here and now today has the ability to impact a person all the way across the world that just simply never existed before. Right? And yet that's what we have in our lives every single day. Right? So bringing that into our food choices as well, into our eating. Right? And of course, our eating in relationship with other animals. Am I eating foods that are negatively impacting animals? Am I eating foods that are causing unnecessary pain and suffering to animals? If I am, what am I going to do about that? What do I think about that? Do I think that's okay? Especially in this world today where there is an abundance, an overabundance of unbelievable plant-based food that tastes like, looks like, feels like, chews like, has a texture like animal-based foods. And I'm still deciding to eat meat, dairy, and eggs, knowing full well what's going on behind the scenes, which isn't so much behind the scenes anymore. Right? We know it's all over the place, social media, movies, documentaries, and the like. It's out in the open. Yet still, we as humans are killing tens of billions of land animals every single year for food, not even including fish. So to think about, again, all the time in our lives, throughout the year, but especially during Elul. This is the month of introspection. This is the month of looking at ourselves, our actions. What am I doing? That's so amazing. I know I'm reiterating it. I'm repeating myself, but it's such an important idea. What am I doing? Look at the good in myself. Notice the good. Congratulate myself for the good that I do. And lovingly challenge myself to be even better. Lovingly challenge myself to fix the things, to change the things I'm not yet doing as good as I can. And again, using the medium of our eating, of our food choices, to improve ourselves and our relationships with all of these different spheres, ourselves, other humans, other creatures, creations, animals, the environment, and all of that kind of coalesces into our relationship with God. Right? Because when I sit down for a meal, I'm eating before God. Right? And it's as if God's looking down on my plate and saying, Kiva, what you eating today? How is that food that you're about to eat going to impact you, your health, your wellness? How is it impacting other human beings working in factories and farms around the world? How is it affecting animals? How is it affecting ecosystems, nature, the environment? And all of that is completely included in my relationship with God. Because God cares about all these things. How do I know? It says so in the Torah. Right? All of these values are expressed in the Torah through teachings, through verses, through laws. Right? And so when I sit to eat, when I sit down to eat, I'm always sitting down to eat before God. I'm eating before God all year round, every single time I sit to eat. But especially again during Elul, there's something more tangible, more visceral in the air. It's easier, so to speak, to feel it, to know it, to get into that mindset, to get into that space of awareness and consciousness and thinking about these things, right? And so we come back to this quote, this beautiful quote from Rav Kook, right? Rav Avram Yitzchak Cohen Kook, who says, I'm just going to repeat it. He said it before, when we forget the essence of our own soul, everything becomes confused and in doubt. The primary tshuva, that which immediately lights darkness, is when a person returns to him or herself, to the root of his or her soul. This is all about returning to who we originally were, returning to who we originally were meant to be, that original blueprint, so to speak, right? It's like the potential that we're shown of who we can become before we're born into this world or as we're born into this world. And then it's up to us to fulfill that potential, to bring that potential into reality. I just want to share one last thing. And that's this verse, this famous verse from the book of Genesis, chapter 1, verse 29, where God says, right, to the newly created humans, Adam and Eve, See, I give you every seed-bearing plant that is upon all the earth, and every tree that has seed-bearing fruit, they shall be yours for food. Right? When we talk about returning to that original blueprint, returning to that original vision of who we are, who we could be, who we're meant to be. How can we not talk about the original diet? We're talking about food here. God's first and original diet, and I think we can say ideal diet for humans, purely plant-based, not raising or killing animals for food. And when we talk about tshuva, when we talk about return, right, and we go beyond ourselves and we go to the national level and to the universal level, and we talk about return on that level, and we talk about our eating and our food choices and what we're putting in our bodies, this is the ultimate return. The ultimate return to the original blueprint plan for how and what we would eat in this world. And I don't have the quote from Rav Kook here in this PowerPoint, in this slideshow, but Rav Kook himself says, how can we believe, how can we think that such a moral infused way of eating, which was given to humanity at the beginning of the story, which lasted until the generation of Noah, right? It only changed after the flood for various reasons, not to talk about them right now. It's a whole other story, right? But how can we think that such a beautiful and moral imperative, Rav Kook says, will not be returned to one day in the future? And Rav Kook is of the opinion that one day in the future, we are going to be returning to this, Genesis 1:29, to the original way of eating for humanity given to us by God. We're on our way. We're on the path. We're in a process of getting there. We're on a journey to going back to doing on some level, one of the highest levels of tshuva, of return to the very beginning of the diet that God gave us in Gan Eden, in Garden of Eden, right? Plant-based diet, fully vegan diet, right? Not raising or killing animals for food. And I'll just end with this, that I think is so powerful, that Adam and Eve, we got kicked out of the garden very, very soon. Very, very soon. Right away, in fact. And yet, really, the only thing we took with us, or they took with them, the only thing they took with them from the garden that had any resemblance to the way they lived in the garden, I mean, everything changed for them. Everything changed. Their life in the garden and out of the garden were two completely ways of living, two completely different lifestyles. The only thing really that connected them, the only thing they took with them from the Garden of Eden into their lives for their entire lives and stayed part of all humans' lives until after the flood, about 1,600 years later, was this diet. This diet was not only for the Garden of Eden, it lasted until after the flood, which means that diet was like the connector, was the reminder of the Garden of Eden. And on some level, and we see this in many Jewish sources, we're trying to get back to the Garden of Eden. We're trying to get back to the garden, trying to get back to this ideal place and state of mind and state of being, state of awareness and state of living and state of eating, right? And as more and more people choose to go plant-based, choose to go vegan, right? We are making this world into that Garden of Eden. So my friends, thank you so much for joining me, right? I'll just do this. Thank you so much for joining me for this class, for this live class. Feel free to ask any questions or leave any comments in the comments on Facebook. If you're watching this recorded, again, say hi and tell us where you're tuning in from. And it's always a pleasure to share and to learn together. And I look forward to more and more of classes like this as time moves on. So we're right now halfway through Elul. All right, so I hope some of these ideas that we shared, that we brought up, help you to make the most of the second half of Elul, of the next 2 weeks leading up to Rosh Hashanah, and really help all of us to come to Rosh Hashanah in the most beautiful and awesome and powerful way. So all the best, my friends, and be well. Again, leave comments or questions in the comments, and I can look at them later. All the best, and shalom.